All right, we've got news about AMD's upcoming GPUs, NVIDIA's upcoming GPUs, Intel's upcoming GPUs, FSR 2.0 software stuff, and more. Let's go ahead and get started with this interesting topic. So a lot of people are so interested in the power consumption targets of the next generation of graphics cards. And AMD in this current generation has been much more power efficient than NVIDIA. And with the rumors that I reported on yesterday and previously showing that NVIDIA's next-gen GPUs might be absolutely insane on power draw, well, what does that mean for AMD? Well, there's an interview at Tom's Hardware, which I'm actually reporting on the article about it from videocards.com here. But this is an interview with Sam Nafziger. I don't know how to pronounce that, but he's from AMD. He's a senior VP. And he is somebody actually high up within AMD. So this is not random leaks and rumors from various Pokemon and Digimon on the internet. This, I would say, I would take a little bit more seriously. Now, what is he saying here? So they're asking about power draw for upcoming GPUs, and he says that the demand for gaming and compute performance is, if anything, just accelerating, and at the same time, the underlying process technology is slowing down pretty dramatically, and the improvement rate. So the power levels are just going to keep going up. So, I mean, there's a statement right there. The power levels are just going to keep going up. Now, we've got a multi-year roadmap of very significant efficiency improvements to offset that curve, but the trend is there. Now, what does he mean by this? Very significant efficiency improvements. So we've seen from AMD themselves, I believe this was at a investor meeting that they showed this, but they showed that RDNA3's projected performance per watt uplift is over 50% when compared to RDNA2. Now, so basically, if you kept the same wattage, you could get 50% more performance. But what he's saying here is if we also boost the wattage and have that increased performance per watt, we then get more than a 50% performance increase. And why would they maybe need to be doing that? Well, they say that, I guess I'm a little small now. Performance is king, but even if our designs are more power efficient, that doesn't mean you don't push the power levels up if the competition is doing the same thing. It's just that they'll have to push them a lot higher than we will. So that last little bit is interesting. Now, this is somebody from AMD, not from NVIDIA. So obviously, he's not going to be privy to all of the inside NVIDIA information about their upcoming GPUs. But guys, it really seems like most of these big tech companies have a very good idea of what their competitors are actually doing. So it seems like he's pretty confident that while their power draw will increase generation to generation, it won't have to get pushed as far as NVIDIA will. Now, we could also do a little bit of napkin math here. If you take a 50% performance per watt uplift and also increase your power budget by 33%, or about a third, if it scaled linearly, which I should say right now, it probably doesn't. Power efficiency is on a curve, it's not linear. So if you just jam 30% more power at a GPU, you don't necessarily get 30% more performance. So basically, maybe expect something lower than this. But if we take a 33% wattage uplift with a 50% performance per watt uplift, that does get you almost 2 times performance. And if you did that to something like, say, the power budget of 300 watts, where our 6900 XT, I believe, was its TDP or TGP or whatever they call it, too many acronyms these days, that would get you to around 400 watts. So I don't think it would be crazy for us to see the 7900 XT with a 400 watt power budget and a not quite, but maybe close to 2 times performance uplift, maybe 1.8, something like that, to do with the performance not scaling linearly. Now, again, all those numbers, to be clear, are just just me doing, you know, napkin math and speculation based on our 50% performance uplift here and a, you know, increased power budget. But interesting. Now, to deal with increased power budgets on upcoming GPUs, we're going to need beefy coolers and power supplies. So that's what I want to talk about next. So how about we jump over to a Moore's Law is Dead release here. And he definitely wants us to let us know that this is from him, but you know, fair enough. He did the work, wants the credit, and there's your credit, Moore's Law is Dead, although I'm actually grabbing this from a WCCF Tech article reporting on the Moore's Law is Dead video. But anyway, it looks like he's taken insider-sourced information as well as other leaks to produce renders of upcoming cooler designs for NVIDIA's, looks like this one's the RTX 4090 Ti. And man, that thing looks beefy. So all signs point to the overall cooler design being very similar to what we've seen on the 3000 series, especially on the high end like the 3090 Ti. But that's thick, man. But it doesn't look like it's going to a 3-fan design. That still seems to be doing the similar fan design to what we've seen earlier. But again, it's looking like we'll see either between a 3 or 3.5 slot design, and it'll carry more fins and more heatsink surface area. And, you know, we've seen rumors from our favorite Copite 7 Kimi over there that there could be a 3-fan design, although that does not seem to be what Moore's Law is Dead is reporting on. So anyway, it doesn't look like, according to Copite, we would need to go up to 4 or 5 full slots. Now, to power these things, what are you going to need? Well, let's take a look at this, because this was posted today. So MSI was announcing upcoming power supplies that are designed to be ready for future-proofing, high-performing GPUs. Now, one big thing, and there's been a recent Gamers Nexus video on this topic, is that one of the issues with power draw here is even if your power supply has enough total wattage to contain all of the parts and their wattage they're supposed to draw, GPUs will often have transient peaks in power draw that are way, way higher than its average power draw. And that this can, on some power supplies that aren't designed well to support this, this can trip an overcurrent protection and basically cause your PC to reset or turn off, which is incredibly annoying. So it looks like these are designed to be up to a 3 times power excursion ready, right? And they also come with these PCIe 5.0 power cables, which are really interesting because this cable can deliver up to 600 watts of power through the 12 VHP WR connector with 16 pins. And so if we kind of zoom in here on some of this stuff, it looks like they're saying they can go up to a 2 times total power excursion, 3 times GPU power excursion. And, you know, this would be where you'd connect in. There you can see that interesting pin connector. And again, up to 600 watts of power through that connection. Now, I've seen some comments on my channel saying that they're worried that to run a next-gen GPU, you have to have a power supply with these connectors. And nothing I've seen makes me feel like that would be the case. I think you would just get an adapter to take your 8-pin power connectors off your normal GPU and then adapt them into one of these connectors if the GPU you buy only supports these connectors. So I don't think it's the you know, the cable itself that you need to be worried about with can your power supply support one of these. It's do you have enough total wattage as well as can it support massive transient peaks, or perhaps you'll need to just buy the mid-range, or, you know, we can hope at least a little bit that, you know, AMD's claim here that, you know, they won't have to push their power quite as far as NVIDIA does maybe. Anyway, so hopefully there is some hope here. Now, how about some Intel benchmarks? So we've recently seen the A380 desktop GPU getting benchmarked. Now that's one of the lower end Intel graphics cards, but how about some of their top line A-series GPUs, although these are M's, so these are laptops. Well, once again, Tom's Hardware, and reported by Video Cards here, we have some interesting data. So Tom's Hardware apparently has stuff that's currently in the reviewer's guide that is seemingly only given to Chinese reviewers at this point. Again, Intel's releasing in the Chinese market first before expanding elsewhere. Now, apparently Tom's Hardware got their hands on this document, but did not post the actual document, so it's hard to verify how legitimate this is. But I'm going to say that, you know, Tom's Hardware's reporting this. These reviewer guides are out there. I don't see a big reason to doubt the authenticity of this. But it looks like Tom's Hardware got their hands on the actual Intel benchmarks. Now, what are these benchmarks? So we have the Intel Arc A730M, which has a TGP range of 80 to 120 watts, and the Intel Arc A7070M, which has a TGP of 120 to 150 watts. Now, what's interesting here is when you put this up against the 3050 Ti and the RTX 3060, it's extremely important to look at what kind of wattage it's drawing, okay? Because that is huge, and especially because it looks like, at least in the data that was leaked by Tom's Hardware, it doesn't look like they told us which power consumption target was being used on these Intel GPUs. And in the mobile space, power consumption is everything. So I'm going to say that it looks to me like they might be using higher power than their NVIDIA opponents, but we don't have the exact data on that. Now, the benchmarks themselves are right here. So again, this is from Tom's Hardware, and this table made by Video Cards, and the data is at least supposedly officially coming from Intel, from their press release for their reviewer guides. Now, if you look at it, it does look like the Arc A730M is delivering about 13% better performance on average. It loses in a few games, but mostly wins, and some by a significant margin, against the RTX 3050 Ti. Now again, it could be doing that with a higher power budget in a mobile situation, which is a little bit unfair, so keep that in mind. And also, if you're like, wait, there's a 3050 Ti, there is in laptop GPUs. So if you're not following laptops, you might have been confused by that. Now that's the lowest end of Intel's. I mean, it's a pretty low end NVIDIA GPU. So. And again, it seems to be with a low power consumption target on it. Now, they're comparing their A770M, which is probably their top-end chip. There have been rumors that, you know, maybe there's a 780 or something like that coming up, but all signs point to this at least possibly being Intel's absolute top-end mobile chip. And it's being compared with an RTX 3060 at a low power budget, not an RTX 3070. So it looks like the rumors of them competing with 3070s might not end up holding out, possibly due to bad drivers, we'll see. But it does look like a 12% performance uplift compared to the RTX 3060 here. Now, once again, notice there are a couple of situations where they do actually lose. It looks like Horizon Zero Dawn is giving Intel some problems here. And Death Stranding also appears. So now, aren't both of those ported over from PlayStation, at least? Anyway, I don't know. Anyway, the point is that they're winning against kind of low to mid-range old laptop GPUs, and they might even be doing it with a higher power budget. So all of that points to these not being super impressive for gaming, but I don't know, man. That seems to be the info. Now, how about boost performance with something like FSR 2.0? What I really want to see is XeSS. Can we get XeSS Intel? Because even if your GPUs suck, if other GPUs support XeSS and it's a good upscaling technique, that would be cool. Because FSR 2.0 is expanding out, but it's still not in all that many games. More on that in a minute. But it looks like it's now being, in addition to yesterday, I reported that the open source code is now out there. It's now also out into the Xbox development kit. We don't have any info on whether it's out for PS5 development kits, but keep in mind that the open source code is out there. So even if it's not like in some kind of PlayStation developer kit, it is out there and people could use it. And, ooh, AMD's reporting that FSR was adopted 2 times faster than DLSS. Now, they're talking about FSR 1.0, which is easier to implement than DLSS because it's just a spatial upscaling technique. So I think that that is just to rile up the fans. And FSR 2.0, one of the big questions is how fast will it get adopted? And will its image quality continue to improve? I recommend looking at Digital Foundry's analysis when this was launched in God of War, because you can see that there are definitely still some downsides of FSR 2.0 compared to DLSS, and I would love to see it improved in certain situations. Now, speaking of games adopting FSR, and specifically 2.0, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands has been out on the Epic Games Store with a timed exclusivity deal, but it's now available on Steam, and along with its Steam launch comes an update that adds FSR 2.0 support. And what's cool here is that this is not one of the games that we were expecting to launch with it. So let me get out of the way here. So this is now a video cards article. I was just on a couple of WCCF Tech articles there. But video cards article on this topic is showing the games that currently actually support FSR 2.0. It launched with just Deathloop, but we now have, it was then added to Farming Simulator 22, then God of War, and now Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. And several of these were not listed by AMD on their upcoming support list. Now, their upcoming support list does include some games like Hitman 3, Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it also includes some games that maybe people know less about or less excited about. So it's kind of cool to see games that aren't even on this list just adding it kind of out of the blue here all of a sudden. So I would say all signs point to this getting added to more games pretty quickly. And now, along with that, I believe we had an interview here at WCCF Tech with the Naraka Bladepoint developers, which has DLSS support, and they were asking, are you interested in supporting FSR 2.0? And we are wondering if you will be using FSR 2.0 on the consoles, and if that's the case, will FSR 2.0 eventually be added to PC too? And their response is, we will continue improving Naraka Bladepoint's performance and graphics after the game's console launch. FSR is a technology we've already used, but we're still waiting for the source code for FSR 2.0. Well, that source code is out now. Anyway, so that we can explore and implement it further, this is a technology we want to use and is in our future plans for the game. So basically just more evidence that developers are very interested in adding FSR 2.0 to their games, and there's a lot of upcoming games that are gonna be featuring that. Now, speaking of games and upcoming games, I just think I should mention, since I talk about deals on this channel, the Steam Summer Sale 2022 is out now. This is an article about it over here at WCCF Tech, where they have listed some of the big deals. There's too many to fully list here. But there are definitely some here that might be interesting. I might grab a few, like if you're interested in, checking out FSR 2.0, well, Deathloop 60% off, God of War is 20% off. There's some bigger discounts on some various topics here. Everybody's interested in different games, so I'll just kind of leave it up to you, possibly go grab yourself some good deals to play this summer. Now, a couple last minute things. So we've seen a whole bunch of competitors to the Steam Deck coming out there. Now, I know things like this were out there before Steam Deck, so I guess maybe just calling them all competitors to the Steam Deck isn't exactly fair, but I mean more in terms of the Steam Deck really jumped ahead of the pack by getting AMD to give them a chip that had RDNA2 graphics on it ahead of when other companies could get their hands on that. Well, we're starting to see a lot of other handheld makers actually finally get their hands on a RDNA2 capable APU for their handhelds, and now we're seeing a new one from, oh my goodness, AOKZOE. I'm not going to try to attempt to pronounce that if you are supposed to pronounce that, but they've been demonstrating their handheld with a Zen 3 Plus CPU and RDNA2 graphics running Forza Horizon 5, Cyberpunk 2077, and this appears to be an 8-core, whereas the Steam Deck is just 4-core, and I believe Steam Deck is Zen 2 or Zen 2 Plus, something along those lines, this being Zen 3, 12 RDNA2 integrated graphics cores. So this could be a fairly powerful system, and they're showing it delivering solid performance, although we're not seeing the actual graphics settings that they're using. Although Windows seems to be reporting the screen resolution as being 1920 by 1200. Now that doesn't necessarily mean the games that were running at 60 FPS were running at that resolution. So there's still a lot more to find out about these, but I'm really interested in getting myself a handheld. Other quick news is just that Plague Tale Requiem has a release date and is announced to feature a DLSS and ray tracing support. No current news on FSR 2.0, although I would love to see that. And that release date is October 18th, 2022. And the graphics that they've released on that look quite good, in my opinion. And this does mean that DLSS is now available in over 180 titles. So speaking of upscaling tech expanding to a lot of games, it is growing. Now, last thing I'll end on here is some reports that, well, there is starting to be a trickle, hopefully turning into a flood, of mining GPUs out onto the market, that you do want to consider that while you might get a good deal on a used GPU, you have to be careful. Now, a lot of miners are careful with their mining equipment. So a lot of them are actually well cared for and will not give you problems, even if they've seen a lot of use in mining. But when you're buying a used GPU, just be aware, of what you're getting, and make sure you're buying from a site or in a process where you feel like you could get a refund or return if you get a defective system, and that's not always the case. We're seeing reports of lots of sell-offs, especially in Chinese and South Asian e-cafes, putting up massive amounts were auctioned off in live streams. But we're seeing reports that somebody was buying an RTX 3080, got a good deal on it, but it reported with only 8 gigabytes of VRAM, and that seems to be because, well, it should have 10 gigabytes. One of the memory modules, or well, I guess 2 of the 1 gigabyte memory modules were damaged. So anyway, just be careful. I'm not saying don't buy used. My main hope on is that the used GPUs push down the price of the new GPUs, which, again, you can keep an eye on my community page. I do post deals as I see them. And this video is getting long, so I hope all of you have an excellent day.